So I don't believe in quality time. I think it's bubble nights, as my grandfather and grandmother said. It's about being present in a child's life. One, my father always used to say, never, as a pediatrician, never met a child that was spoiled because they were told one too many times in a day they were loved. Not that he ever applied that to his three kids. His three kids got a slap in the back of the head and called, "What are you, a schmuck?" But we applied that. Kids had homework. I would lay on their bed and do my own reading and stuff because it was easier for them to say something there than at the dinner table. Dinner table, we had 4 dinners a week as a family. But the other thing was when I would walk in the door, if I was on the phone, the kids are excited to see you and you put them on hold. Like, and so Amy said, spend the extra 3 minutes, finish the phone call in the car or on the porch. And when you come in, be present. And all those things work. But all these things collectively over all 18 years and now all add up.
Hi, it's Liz, and welcome to Liz's Coffee Connection. And today I am super excited to be talking to somebody who is what I would call a Renaissance public servant. And I came up with the word Renaissance because, and he's going to tell you we're going to talk about all the different things that he has done. But Rahm Emanuel has had more interesting career in public service than just about anybody. And I've spoken to a lot of people over the last few years. And I just want to say thank you, Ram, for being here. And before I let you say anything, I always like to tell about why we do this podcast, because for me, it is so important for people to find common humanity, build bridges. I speak with Republicans, I speak with Democrats, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, people from all over, because at the end of the day, I think there is so much more that connects us than what divides us. And that is what we should be striving for. We can have differences on politics and policy, but we sort of share, I believe, so much similarity in, I call it the 4 H's: heart, humanity, home, and hope. So on that note, I'm just going to say, I found a few things that we have in common. We've never met before, but
Oh,
we both are middle children. We are
I have something funny about that, but
Okay,
go
you'll
ahead.
get to that. And then
Yeah.
I studied ballet when I was in high school, but I was
Oh,
bouncy and you were really good, I understand. And then the other part that I just found out you're going to go to yoga, and I love yoga. So that's another thing. But the other part is that our families had similar histories of coming to America and fighting and running from religious persecution, but then also coming here and making sure that we understood how lucky we were to be here and the shoulders we stood on. And so, on a serious note, I just want to say thank you because you're here today and we're going to have fun. But I just want to say thank you for.
is that a guarantee? Does doing the podcast come with a warranty? You're going to have fun?
Wait till we're done. You'll let me know. Anyways,
Thanks,
welcome and
Liz.
thank you for being here.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
So, I guess my first thing would be just could you tell us a little bit about your trajectory? Because you have been not only worked in a few White Houses in incredible capacity, you've also been a mayor, a congressperson, and an ambassador, and most important, an amazing, I think, husband from what I've heard, and father. Talk a
Yeah,
little
she
bit
she
about
would.
how you do everything.
My guess is Amy would like a rebuttal on the last comment. I wrote a piece the other day, about a month ago, on the Wall Street Journal about parenting, and my kids said after they read it, just make sure the Wall Street Journal says we don't want a letter, we want the other side. They want an equal 2,000 word rebuttal set. So no, one is I think I've been blessed and lucky working for 3 great presidents and learning a lot and having their trust, and then working on everything from the assault weapon ban to children's health insurance program to the healthcare plan for President Obama. And then also working for President Biden, working on strengthening America's relationship with Japan, which is unique and distinct and is probably the most important foreign ally we have anywhere in the world. And it only gets more important. So that has been great. But, if I start talking, my kids always say I got 3 subjects I'm not allowed to talk about: my grandfather on my mother's side, my father, who passed away 5 years ago, or the 3 of them, because I start getting kerplanked. Oh, I can't handle it. I start crying. So the most important job I've ever had is being father to 3 kids who have, all made it through adolescence. As I joke, I was the first one to, come up with the policy of don't ask, don't tell. If it's not the principal's office, the police station, or the emergency room, don't tell me, I don't need to know. That's all. But they've all done great, and they're all doing great. And you're lucky enough to find a lifetime partner like Amy who, knows public service is important to me and who helped, as partners. You listen, you know this, you don't see eye to eye on everything, and, we come from different backgrounds of raising kids, but we found a way through our yin and our yang to launch 3, adults that make you proud every day.
Yeah, and I read somewhere that, or I heard that, like in the beginning, you would come home on the phone, and she'd be like, "No, no, stay outside."
Oh, this was in this parenting piece I wrote for the journal. So I don't believe in quality time. I think it's bubble mites, this is my grandfather and grandmother said. It's about being present in a child's life. One, my father always used to say, never, as a pediatrician, never met a child that was spoiled because they were told one too many times in a day they were loved. Not that he ever applied that to his 3 kids. His 3 kids got a slap in the back of the head and called, "What are you, a schmuck?" But we applied that. Kids had homework. I would lay on their bed and do my own reading and stuff because it was easier for them to say something there than at the dinner table. Dinner table, we had 4 dinners a week as a family. But the other thing was when I would walk in the door, if I was on the phone, the kids are excited to see you and you put them on hold. Like, and so Amy said, spend the extra 3 minutes, finish the phone call in the car or on the porch. And when you come in, be present. And all those things work. But all these things collectively over all 18 years and now all add up.
And the thing I was thinking is like the quality time is a weird word, but because then somebody can qualify what is quality. But it is sort of like you said, just being on the bed while they're doing the homework and being present.
So let me say, with the intersection of both being a father and a former mayor or whatever, I believe in, I spend my life, after school programs. We created in Chicago this thing called, with the University of Chicago, BAM, Becoming a Man, largest mentoring program in America. It inspired President Obama as my brother's keeper. Full stop. A government program cannot raise a child. Can't. Can't. It can nurture a child. It can complement what is happening at home, but it can't replace a home that doesn't exist. We as a country, I would say this as Democrats, we shy away from making judgments. Everybody live their lives the way they do, and there's something to that. On the other hand, the most valuable social institution over 10,000 years, family. And we don't want to discuss it for a host of other reasons. And a lot of our challenges, not all of them, come back to the fact that, the family as an institution, let alone as an entity, is the most valuable investment you can make in a child's well-being. And I used to say, not used to say, but I believe there are 3 doors in a child's life that will determine that child's future: the front door of the home, the front door of the school, and the front door of the place of worship. And if one of those doors is closed, it will impact the trajectory of that child.
I've listened to a lot of what you've said before, and I didn't hear that one before, and it's very true.
You're not on a Southern Baptist church swing when you're running for mayor. That was on the on the south and west side. I used to, not that I used, but when I would go, and I not just campaigning, but I used to go all the time. I joked that I was in so many times I was in Baptist churches, Methodist churches on the south and west side of Chicago that my rabbi was getting nervous. But I may look, if a child was there as you were given the honor to speak from the pulpit, I didn't know the child and I didn't know the family, but it was a good chance that child was on the right path because they were there on a Sunday and played in faith. And this is also an ironic thing for my party. We're become much more secular, don't want to talk about our faith. I don't want to use it. But the single most greatest thing that's probably happened in America in the last 50, 70 years is the civil rights movement. And it originates not secularly, but a place of worship. Dr. Martin Luther King, irreverent. But we have become anemic, almost allergic rather, to discussion of faith in not as a instrument, but as where we find our moral and spiritual grounding.
I want to go back to when you were a child because I know we're not going to talk about
Wait,
anything.
is this podcast covered by Blue Cross and Blue
It is
Shield?
covered by all those things and AARP and everything.
Good. Good to know.
But no, the reason I want to is because you also had dinner together as a family when you were little. I did too. My mom's philosophy was be home by 6. I don't really care where you are, what you're doing up the street playing. We didn't have a lot of that we get into too much trouble. Just be home by 6 because we're all having dinner together. And in my house, there was like a meat, a vegetable, and a carb, and you had to eat it all because we heard about people that were starving abroad and they were an immigrant family. But I know that you also had a dinner and that it was an important part of who you were. I think that grounds us is knowing that you show up and you're there together as a family once in the evening.
So funny is when we were growing up, when we had a curfew, it was a street light. Street light went on, you hauled your butt back because you knew there was a neighbor that was going to call on you if you weren't back in the house by that street light goes on. You don't have, but you're Jim Thorpe. You got to make it, and you take a bolt, and you run an 8.9 mile. That so now we had. So I want to be clarified. One, for the first 6 years of my life, my dad's mother lives with us. For prior to my bar mitzvah, for 2 years, basically 10 and 11 or 11 and 12, I can't remember the exact years, grandma and grandpa on my mother's side lived with us. We were not a nuclear family. We had a foster brother. We had two different cousins live with us at different times. So there was never, we always had a table. Every night was Passover night. Elijah was showing up. We had no idea. And Ari and I, my younger brother, had to share, not had to, we shared a room because there was always going to make mom wanted and dad wanted a room available for whoever was staying at the house, sometimes for a month, sometimes for 2 years. And my dad was in the process as an immigrant building a medical practice. And so he was on call every night until the practice got established. And then Thursday nights was his call. And dinner was where you came as a family. We all had a task. Zeke helped my mom make dinner. Ari set the table and I would do the dishes. And that was our task. And to this day, I love doing dishes. There's a whole reason I love it, but those were our tasks. But dinner table was where you would not describe it as a family discussion. It was but it was, let me say this, family discussions were held at a very high volume. And you were expected to participate and contribute. And that's probably that is where my interest in public service was germinated from.
I love that story. It makes me feel like nostalgic for my childhood and my family dinners and people at the table. But then also, you talked about school. And I want to ask you two things. One, I ask all leaders about teachers or mentors or somebody that saw them as a young person that showed up for them that still in our lives today is important in terms of like the relevance of who we are. So if you have a teacher or two that you could share with us, that would be lovely. And then I'll ask you my second question because I have another
Lovely, lovely.
lovely.
Well, in high school, he was a soccer coach, and it relates to the ballet thing, but also U.S. history. His name was Larry Grody, very tall man. He was my homeroom teacher, so they were supposed to be quote unquote an advisor. Larry Grody was also the soccer coach, but he taught U.S. history, which probably nurtured my own interest in the topic. But I say that because after freshman soccer season, I said to my mother I wanted to improve my soccer game. And remember, this is the 70s. So and she says, and this is the time in which Rosie Greer at the Minnesota Vikings takes up ballet. She goes, well, if you off season, if you want to improve your soccer game, you should take up ballet. So I walk in, I took it up, and I didn't want anybody to know, 1974, male ballet dancer wasn't on the marquee. And I walk in and there's 28, 30 women. I mean, there's all women and me. And I go, oh, I could be on the bench with 12 guys or in a classroom by myself at ballet. I'm going here. Months later, in the summer, I don't sign up to go to sophomore year in soccer. And Larry Grody kind of comes over early. He goes, I noticed you didn't sign up. And I said, no. I said, I'm going to take up ballet. No, I'm not speaking ill of any other athletic coach. He was very supportive of that decision. And he says, have you thought about this? And I said, yeah. And he says, have you thought about all what it means? And I said, yeah. And I said, I wanted to get good at, I told him, I said, I wanted to get good at soccer. And I ended up finding out I enjoyed ballet more than I enjoyed soccer. And he was a supportive coach. So he was not only a great U.S. history teacher and a great homeroom advisor, but probably at the judgment where you got to that crossroad. And let's be clear, I was on the bench, so I was not a starting player that was gonna ruin the team camaraderie.
I got you.
I did the best bench warming of any bench warmer you could have. So, but he was very supportive of a decision that I don't want to shortchange other coaches. I don't know, but he was supportive of a decision I made when he could have done something else with my psychology.
Yeah, he saw who you were. He saw you for who
Yeah.
you were, and I love that.
Well, there's a college teacher um, by the name of Charlotte Doyle who child psychology, and at one time prior between ballet and public service was this period of time of early childhood education and or child psychologist. And she and I had this, she nurtured my interest in Piaget and early childhood education and early childhood development as a whole, and the philosophy that crossed between psychology and philosophy called phenomenology. And she was very influential also in letting me follow politics out of child psychology, but it never left me.
So, what is phenomenology exactly?
This is a horrible, well, if you read Merleau-Ponty, he's kind of the leader of Heidegger. It's the intersection between psychology and philosophy. It's where the two come together. And there's a whole French and German, but so anyway, we can spend hours on it, but that's so that would be the second teacher.
I love I love that. Thank you for sharing. But I have a question, and this is like I go to like there's certain things that should not be left or right, Republican or Democrat, and for me, one of them is education. We can always decide how we go on it differently, but one of the things that you've been talking about, this is a podcast that's evergreen, and education is going to be evergreen. But can you talk a little bit about what you have been seeing in traveling the country and Mississippi and others about education? Because I do believe, doesn't matter where you're from in the country, there is a feeling of, wow, we are not doing a good job educating our kids. From where you're going, you're seeing work being done that isn't Republican or Democrat, but it's about the children. And it goes back to the first thing you said, which was the children going to having a home, having a school, and having a religious environment. And the
Or place of worship, yeah. So look, I mean, one is it goes back. I was I was thinking about it one time and studying and preparing to be an early childhood educator. Pin in it. When I'm mayor, we'd create universal full day kindergarten, which did not exist, and universal full day pre-K, which did not exist for 4-year-olds. So my interest in it never ends, and it informs what I do in public life. That said, a couple things. I worked for President Clinton, who creates public school choice, teachers of excellence with expertise in their subject, and helped negotiate and help create Race to the Top for President Obama. Arnie Duncan takes the lion's share of that credit because he has to implement it. And then it's really the reason I run for mayor. because go back to the 80s, William Bennett calls Chicago public schools the worst in America in the 80s. When I walk out, Sean Reardon from Stanford called it the best of the top 100. And we took like graduation rate from the mid 50s to 84%, blah, blah, blah. There's other reading and math score gains, but those are the bookends. Now, we just had these NAEP scores, which are the report card on our schools. And America is at a 30-year low in reading and math scores. President of the United States has never mentioned it. You know more about the President of the United States position on windmills than you do. And no governor or two from two different parties have called an emergency meeting. Now, I believe, not only through history, but through politics, through my own interests, that we're not getting from here to there without education. And we're not getting from here to there competing against China with 50% of our kids falling behind. That's tough. That's competing against a country 3 times your size with one hand tied behind your back. And I don't think you should give up on any child. So I put it at the cornerstone. If I decide to take another leap into the deep end of the pool, I put it at the cornerstone of what I believe in, because I happen to think is how we measure ourselves as a society. And Mississippi went from 49th to 9th in reading scores. They did it over 20 years. Alabama, Louisiana, and Tennessee all replicate the Mississippi model. All have seen significant gains. I don't care if it's from Mississippi. Great. Now, in 2 weeks from today, Liz, I'll be in Michigan. And I'll be in the middle of Michigan to lay out what I think is an idea, something similar to what we did, on how to get more people involved and enrolling in vocational education: carpenters, electrician, operating engineers, plumbers, pipe fitters. If we and then step back, this goes back to my interest in history. There's 4 great periods of American growth: post-Civil War, turn of the century, after World War II, and the Sputnik Challenge. What's the one thing that runs through all of them? Land grant colleges, universal high school education, the GI Bill, and the Science and Technology Challenge. It's the one constant. There are other factors, but it is one of 2 constants. And to me, this time calls for an emergency. And we have to snap out of this deep freeze. And I'm also liberated, having you went through my resume. I don't care. You don't think education is important, not important? That's fine by me. Don't vote for me. I'm good with that, because I want you to know up front what is important.
Look at I think, I mean, children are the reason why we're supposed to be doing public service, or why we are supposed to be raising them, being a mom, being an, an aunt, everything. And for me, it is about education.
Well, I do think one other thing is, I think, and this is a pox on both your houses, Republicans have basically abandoned public schools, and Democrats have abandoned accountability. And our kids are paying a price for both parties abandoning. And so somebody's got to call the whistle and call it offsides and restart the game.
Yeah.
Now, also, I want to be
By the way,
very
and it
clear.
shouldn't be Democrat or Republican, it should be American.
But you say that, but there will be politics involved. I think that it shouldn't be doesn't mean it won't be. And the second thing I would say to you is, we are at a point in time, we have a crisis. Somebody's got to be upfront about it and what it's going to take to fix that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is not, if you're looking for instant gratification, pick another subject. This is when I went to Mississippi, they said everybody outside calls it the Mississippi Miracle. We call it the Mississippi Marathon. It's going to take a generation to dig out of a generation of stupidity.
Yeah, but my thought was that it's not a Democrat or a Republican issue. It should be an American issue.
Well,
And I know there's politics.
that sounds great, but trust me, it's education. It will be political.
Yeah, well, I feel badly.
I mean, I do have some things I will say, like one of the things, like in Chicago, we kind of reinvented high school. It hasn't really been touched in 100 years. So we did 3 things that I think really fundamentally re-altered, went from a diploma psych focus to a college career focus. One, only city, you could not get a high school diploma without showing a letter of acceptance from either a college, community college, a branch of the armed forces, or a vocational school. Couldn't get it. You're not walking till you tell us where you're walking to. Number two, first city ever. Also, if you got a B average, we made community college free. And then third is we ensured that 50% of our kids were graduating with college credit on high school day. So they had a semester, a quarter of a semester, 10 credits, but you got confidence. If nobody else in your family had ever gone to college, you not only saved money, you got confidence that you could handle this game.
It's all good. It's all good. Let me ask you this question. If people look at you and they say, what's the best advice you've ever received and what's the worst advice you've ever received?
Well, there's two things I would say on one thing I would say on advice, and then it's really more of an experience, not so much advice. I mean, my parents always said, and and this also was in this op-ed about love. Setting low expectations is not loving a child. So my parents always had high expectations for all three boys, but also more importantly, don't look back on life and say I woulda, coulda, shoulda. It is better to have tried and failed than to have not tried and kicked yourself in the butt the rest of the time and said I should have. So that's probably, but in my experience, so I'm 17 and I was trying to make some money before I went to college, given that, I was the child of an immigrant, so we weren't supposed to call home. We were supposed to do collect. My dad would hang up, call back, save all the money. Here's your 10. Don't use this money. Only if there's an emergency do you crack the glass and pull the alarm. So I was trying to make money and I ended up cutting myself really bad. 5 blood infections, 2 bone infections, and gangrene. And I was in the hospital for 7 weeks. 3 roommates died. And the first 72, 96 hours for me were touch and go. Between Beethoven's Ninth and Beethoven's Fifth. It was kind of, and it's not like, and I mean this is not like something struck, but over those 7 weeks, through me, as I said, I almost died and 3 roommates died. I realized that I was not exactly the best student in high school, and I didn't really exert myself. My father used to say, Rahm, always try to figure out how to get the maximum for doing the minimum. But I made the decision that if I got out of that hospital, I was going to do something. And that experience of kind of seeing the end kind of made me realize what it was all about. So it was not something advice, but it was a kind of advice to myself.
Wow. I'm glad you shared it. Thank you. And I think people listening will have their story that can relate, but
Everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a story of something or person or, you know, something changes your life.
okay. So now we're going to switch to light and a little breezy. These are the things, these are my quick questions to get to know Ram. You don't know these questions ahead of time, just whatever comes to your mind. The only one, there's one already, and you'll get to it, but there's one you've already answered. But other than that, they're all new. The first one is, what is your favorite sound?
I like fly fishing, the sound of the river going by.
Do you fly fish a lot?
Yeah. I know you find it shocking, but I'm on this side of the neuroses. Yes.
Okay, good.
Nonstop.
Okay, good.
In fact, during the day, I have some videos of stuff and I play them to just remember, just to calm myself off when I was fly fishing. So yes, I love it.
Great. Well, I've never tried it, but I look forward to one day doing it.
It's my addiction.
I love that. Oh, that's a healthy addiction. There's a lot of
Okay.
addictions, so that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite color?
Blue.
Scent or smell?
Actually, not far from where at home where I fly fish is there's some mint. Just natural mint is when you walk on it, it kicks it up. So that smell.
I like that. Favorite word?
Maybe.
Okay.
I really don't have a favorite word, but I don't know. To
Okay.
give you an hint, maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
Who's your biggest cheerleader?
My dad, I would say, was always my biggest cheerleader.
Favorite meal?
2 things. One, I know you want one. One is my favorite meal is when the family's together. We hadn't had Zach's in the Navy. We were in Japan. We hadn't had a Thanksgiving as a family in 4 years. And we just this year we had it because we're back from Japan. And so family meal is my favorite meals. If I could every day, I like breakfast food the most, but I hate eating in the morning. So if I could figure out how to do the European, every day could be brunch, and the bruh part of brunch, meaning 10:30 or 11, that would be it. But I don't like eating in the morning after I work out, and I can't make it to lunch. So if I could figure out a meal, a breakfast meal at 10:30 or 11, that's what it.
It sounds great. Now, I just have this is a shallow question, but when you were in Japan, did you just eat a lot of sushi?
It's an American version. I did eat a lot of sushi, but that's not. Uh, I mean, you are dealing with, of the top 4 Michelin star cities in the world. Number 1 is Tokyo. Number 2 is Paris. Number 3 is Kyoto. Number 4 is Osaka. Japan has 3 of the top 4, and the food there, not just fish, but if you go up north to Hokkaido, probably the most phenomenal venison you'll ever have. The vegetables and fruit are off the chart. So, did I eat a lot of sushi? Yes, but you're missing Japan's culinary contribution. If all, and you got to think of Japan as 127 craftsmen and tradesmen, all who are expert at what they do. So in the food area, there was a story, I think, yesterday in the New York Times, like the number 1 pizza guy is from Tokyo, and he's opening up a pop-up in New York in the first week of February. This week, actually.
Well, I'm in New York, so I'm going to go check it out.
Check out the New York Times. I was at his pizzeria.
Japanese pop up for a pizza restaurant.
No, but I'll tell you, but you had to understand, you got to go to they will go to Italy and study dough for 6 years. Tomato sauce. I mean, they will study it until they think they have mastered. I was at a restaurant once in Kyoto, and I said to the sous chef, "Oh, you should do a pop-up." Oh, no, not good. And she can't become a chef until the gentleman that restaurant was signs a paper validating that he thinks she's able to graduate. It's a real guild in the best of sense, and a sense of pride and and ownership of that.
Favorite exercise? I know you're going to do yoga, but is that it?
It's a combination. So I swim a mile in the morning, 4 days a week. Been doing it and I do 2 of those. I do an hour of weights beforehand, and 2 of those I do a yoga after. So of the 4. So it's a combination.
And do you listen to music when you do any of this? Obviously,
No,
cool.
I just like to breathe.
You just like to breathe.
No, just, yeah. I like the world. Actually, no, I like the world shut out. Nobody can get to me. Nobody can tell me. There's not phone. Just an hour. 1, 2. On the other hand, you don't want to be on the receiving end when I get out of the pool, because I have like 40 ideas we got to get things done by.
I'm just going to say yes, I can imagine. I would not want to be the person that you're dumping after.
You don't want to be on the receiving end of Rahm Emanuel after a swim. Trust me, the whole staff will tell you that.
Okay. I'll check with them at some point. But what is your superpower? What is Rom's superpower?
I don't know. No, I would say fear of failure, but I would also say, I jokingly said this when you started. I joked that middle children wrote a book, War or Peace. We can do either one. So if you tell you want this, I'm in. You want that? I can do that too. So middle children are quite versatile. That's not true about older or younger children.
No, and I'm also a bit of that like Switzerland of like I'm the person in between both that makes it all
I can, yeah,
work it out.
I can negotiate. Yeah.
Yeah. You can go bigger, go stronger, go slower, whatever. And this is funny. I always ask people their favorite household chore, but you kind of already said that too.
I love, yeah, I mean, dirty dishes, warm water running over your hands, clean dishes, and your backs to everybody else. I love it.
Okay. My last piece is same question I ask everyone. It's about joy. My question is, what does joy mean to you, and what brings you joy? And if Ram is joyful, how does he share that joy with others?
So a couple things, but I mean, joy is just the bigger joy with a capital J is watching my kids navigate the next chapter of their lives and seeing how they're all growing, choosing, and that, this. As I joked not joked. One night, Zach was at dinner, and I said, "Look, man, you're going to be 15. I'm going to be 54. One of us is going to make it, and one of us is not. And when I tell the judge why I did what I did, I'm getting off. There'll be no manslaughter charges. So I'm going to kill you." But we got through adolescence, and to see a kid all of them, that for one reason or another you wanted to throttle, Zachariah left to graduate UCLA. He's Navy full-time, 6 years, Intel. Alana's Navy Reserve is going to the University of Chicago and getting a joint law and business degree. And Leia, you know, she graduated Princeton and she's working at the intersection of climate change and national security. So I'm proud of all of them. That gives me, in our tribe, naches, not nachos, naches, pride. And that gives me joy watching my kids write their next chapter on their own. Not with me, write their, or Mamie, but their own chapter. On the other hand, yesterday, Amy and I went to see my mother, who's 93, came home, made a fire, put on Zach Bryan and Chris Stapleton, and we sat in front of the fire. She's listening to a book. I am reading the same book. And we sat in front of the fire for 6-7 hours. Each child called at a different time. And so I love reading. I share books with my son. I share them with my daughter. And I sent something to the younger one who's traveling overseas right now. So those simple things.
Well, thank you.
So, all right. Thanks for having me.
And
thanks for the topics.
have a wonderful yoga and keep doing amazing work. And thank you for sharing your heart and your humanity with me today and with all of us. And I hope
Thank
you
you
again in person and have a real coffee soon.
Enjoy the pizza.
I will. Hi, it's Liz. Thanks for hanging out with me on Liz's Coffee Connection. Before you go, do yourself a favor. Turn off the doom scrolling, dial down the noise, and start joy scrolling, because there's a lot of good in the world. People are kind, joy is real, and you don't have to miss it. If this episode made you smile or feel a little lighter, share it with someone who could use that lift, because sharing really is caring, and we can all use a little extra joy these days. Have a beautiful day, and don't forget to subscribe to Liz's Coffee Connection. Until next week's coffee, ciao.